You ever get hit with a fine that makes your blood boil, but then, somehow, it ends up turning your entire life inside out? That's pretty much what happened to me. They fined me $500 for fishing in my own neighborhood. So I bought their 12-acre lake for $47 grand and banned the entire HOA from ever stepping foot on it again. Let that sink in for a second. It started simple. I'm Dalton Reeves, 52, retired Navy logistics. 3 years ago, after Miranda, my wife, passed, I needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could breathe. Willowbrook Estates looked perfect. 47 homes hugging a 12-acre lake. Old HOA covenants that promised everyone access. Just what I needed. I paid my dues, settled in. It's a routine you dream of when you've had enough of the world's noise. 5 a.m. coffee, tackle box that still smells like old leather and better days. Sunrise fishing to keep my mind right. For 6 months, that lake was paradise. It let me grieve in peace. Then came Bethany Whitmore. Real estate agent. Maybe 42. White Escalade. Heels sharp enough to pierce concrete. The kind of person who brings cookies as reconnaissance. She started off nice. Made small talk. Admired my fishing rig, even. But the day she got herself elected HOA president, the weather changed. Suddenly, I get a visit about lake usage protocols. Suddenly, there's a $75 annual fishing fee for maintenance and security. When I pointed out that our dues already covered access, Bethany's smile dropped like a guillotine. Rules are rules, Dalton. Pay up or no fishing. That's when I knew what I was dealing with. You learn something spending 24 years in the Navy. Bullies escalate if you give in. So I didn't. Kept fishing. Same spot, same time. Because honestly, those mornings were the only thing holding me together. Gentle water, mist rising, real therapy, not the stuff they hand out in pamphlets at the VA. 3 weeks later, a fine shows up. $500. Cheap printers, smudged ink, violation. Unauthorized use of common area amenities. I held that paper thinking, what sort of person fines a widower for fishing in his own neighborhood? Didn't take long for Bethany to show up herself. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking on my porch like a metronome set to annoy. This is your formal notice to cease all lake activities until your fees are current. I said, ma'am, I've dealt with worse than HOA Karens in 3 war zones. She turned the color of an overcooked lobster and stomped off. But in her rear view I caught a look. Pure rage. The kind of look you remember. That night, I pulled out the original HOA covenant. I'd kept it. Maybe that was luck, maybe instinct. Page 12, Section 4. Lake is unrestricted recreational amenity for all residents in perpetuity. Perpetuity. That means forever, in plain English. No exceptions, no fees, and definitely no Bethany. But the next morning, things got weird. Orange cones blocked the path to the lake. Not just my path, everybody's. Big shiny sign. Lake access restricted. Permits required. Bethany had escalated from singling me out to locking down the entire lake. Now let me pause. Picture Mrs. Kowalski, 78, staring out her kitchen window, heartbroken. The Henderson kids asking why they can't swim. Patels, who always walked the lake after dinner, suddenly turned into violators. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about fees or maintenance. This was about power. Bethany tasted a little control and wanted more. Standing on my deck, breathing in coffee and lake air, I felt something shift. The same thing that kicked in back in the Navy when everything hit the fan and everyone said the mission was impossible. That cold, sharp mindset that turns problems into puzzles. She thought she could bulldoze some sad old fisherman. What she didn't know was, she just declared war on a Navy logistics officer with nothing left to lose. I actually smiled. For the first time since Miranda died, it felt like I had a reason to. Bethany called an emergency. HOA board meeting 3 days after the lake lockdown. I show up to find 3 people. Bethany, Bob Martinez, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. And Janet Anderson, who kept checking her phone like she was missing her show. 3 out of 7 board members. Not a quorum in any universe, but in HOA land? Good enough, apparently. Motion to implement enhanced lake usage protocols, Bethany says, sliding a typed document across the table. Fishing's now restricted to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., weekends only. Oh, and a $25 daily fee, payable in advance. Janet's jaw hits the table. $25 every day. Plus, they're making it retroactive. According to Bethany, I owed $1,200 for the past month. You ever been in a room so tense even the lights buzz louder? That's what it felt like. Bob shifted in his seat like his pants were on fire. Janet stared like she'd been handed a live grenade. Bethany's hand shot up to vote. Bob reluctantly followed. Janet sat on her hands. Motion carries. That night I was in my garage going through old paperwork when I found it, the original 1987 HOA covenant, buried in county records. Page 12 again. No additional fees or usage limitations may be imposed without amendment by 75% of homeowners. 75%. Not 3 people in a clubhouse after dark. Here's a knowledge nugget for you. Original HOA covenants trump any new rule, unless 3/4 of all homeowners vote for it. Most boards don't know, or hope you don't. I took my documents to Marcus Webb, real estate attorney, Navy buddy's recommendation. Marcus grinned like he'd just found a pirate's chest. Your HOA president stepped in legal quicksand. Want to sue? Not yet, I told him. Let's see how much rope she needs. But Bethany didn't stop with me. She started sending violations to everybody. Mrs. Kowalski, garbage cans an inch too close to the curb. Henderson's, grass too long. Mr. Patel, fence out of code, supposedly. Bethany's measuring tape became our new neighborhood soundtrack. She'd march around, clicking it against concrete, humming when she found a violation. Here's where I went on the offensive. Started documenting everything. Not just pictures, video. Bethany measuring grass with a ruler? Got it. Bethany inspecting fence posts with a magnifying glass? Filmed. Bethany standing in driveways, taking notes like she worked for the CIA? All recorded. The real twist came when I dug into the security contract. $18,000 for a part-time teenager to watch me fish. Legally, HOAs have to make financial records available to homeowners. Bethany tried to stall, but one polite letter from Marcus, and suddenly I'm sitting in the office with a banker's box of documents. That's when I found it. Bethany had approved the contract with Willowbrook Patrol Services, a company owned by her brother-in-law. $18,000 right into her family's pocket. Meanwhile, Jimmy Cortez, the 19-year-old security guard, walks up to me his first day like he's been told I bite. Sir, I need to ask you to stop fishing. I said, you asking or telling, son? Honestly, I have no idea. This is the weirdest job ever. I pour him coffee from my thermos. Turns out his dad served 2 tours in Afghanistan. We bond. More importantly, Jimmy starts talking. She's got me writing reports about your aggressive behavior. But all you do is drink coffee and feed ducks. What kind of reports? I ask. Like subject displayed threatening posture by casting fishing line in intimidating manner. Not making this up. That's when it hit me. Bethany thought she was building a case against me, but all she was doing was building evidence of harassment. Every bogus report became proof of her vendetta. Next morning, I was right back at my usual spot, tackle box, folding chair, and now a gone fishing sign. Waved at Bethany's kitchen window for good measure. Through Jimmy, I learned she'd spent 20 minutes screaming at someone on the phone about escalating the situation. She thought clipboard fascism would scare me off. She had no clue. Here's the real kicker. She still had no idea the lake wasn't actually hers to control. And her brother-in-law's contract? Exhibit A for the county if this went to court. Bethany's next move? She went nuclear. Enhanced security protocols, her email blast announced. Willowbrook Patrol Services now covering evening shifts to monitor aggressive behavior. Jimmy showed up Monday looking like he'd just been drafted. They want me to file incident reports every time you do anything. He looked embarrassed. I'm supposed to write this stuff with a straight face. Over coffee, Jimmy tells me his community college criminology professor says documentation should be objective. This is just creative writing, he says. But Bethany wasn't finished. She called county code enforcement, reporting me for unauthorized dock construction. My crime? A folding chair and a tackle box. Dave Brennan, code enforcement, shows up. Good guy. Got a complaint about unpermitted structure. I point to my setup. Dave, what am I supposed to have built? He looks at the chair like it's radioactive. That's when Bethany marches over in her power suit, jabbing at my gear. EPA equipment creates a permanent fishing station, violating setback requirements. Dave blinks. Ma'am, it's a folding chair. Bethany demands documentation of my illegal structure. Dave scribbles something, looked like waste of taxpayer time, and leaves. That afternoon, I filed a formal complaint against the HOA for harassment and misuse of funds. Not a lawsuit, just enough to trigger a county investigation. Counties actually investigate HOA financial misconduct if you file the paperwork. They've got subpoena power. Marcus helps me document everything. Bethany's contract, violation patterns, abuse of emergency board meetings. The county has 60 days to respond. But here's where I made my real move. I requested a formal property survey of the lake boundaries. Why? Marcus asked. If Bethany wants to play property rights games, let's make sure everyone knows where the actual lines are. The survey found something weird. The lake extended 15 feet past what people thought. Some docks, even Bethany's fancy landscaping, actually encroached on lake property. Suddenly, she was potentially violating the same rules she tried to hang me with. But she didn't let up. Bethany starts door-to-door visits, warning neighbors about the dangerous veteran. Jimmy, my inside man, tells me her latest script, unstable behavior, possible PTSD, could snap at any moment. You don't fight smear campaigns with anger. You fight with character. So, I started building community. Mrs. Kowalski invited me for pierogi Tuesday. Kitchen smelled like dough and onions. Bethany's scared because you won't roll over, she said. Bullies hate backbone. The Henderson's daughter, Sarah, came by during my morning fishing. Instead of shooing her away, I taught her how to tie a knot. For half an hour, her parents got to relax. That's what this neighborhood used to be. 12 families started quietly supporting me, each with their own Bethany horror story. Patel got fined for 2 American flags. Kowalski cited for bird feeding. My favorite psychological warfare move? Bringing extra coffee. Handing out cups to neighbors right in front of Bethany's window. The sight of people gathering, drinking coffee, laughing. It drove her nuts. Jimmy kept up the intelligence. She's talking about property acquisition options, he said one morning. Now that set off alarm bells. Meanwhile, I kept my record spotless. Every morning, timestamps, video, every encounter documented. I wasn't just fishing anymore. I was building a case. The county sent its investigation letter to the HOA, requesting all records. Bethany freaked out. Her next move? Security cameras around the lake. All activities monitored. To watch a guy drink coffee and fish. But what was she planning? Property acquisition options. That phrase wouldn't leave me alone. That night I couldn't sleep. Time to dig. You ever have one of those nights where your brain just won't quit? That's where I found myself. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing Jimmy's words, property acquisition options. The phrase rattled around my skull like loose change. Something wasn't adding up. So I went digging. Pulled every property doc I could find, HOA records, county maps, my old closing paperwork, even the original 1987 deed. And there it was. The lake had a different parcel number than the rest of the common areas. Why would that be? Hours later, I'm hunched over a county records terminal, coffee cold, hands shaking from too much caffeine and not enough answers. Then I find it. Original deed from Willowbrook Development Corp. To the HOA. Management easement for maintenance purposes only. Fee simple ownership, retained by grantor. Which in plain English meant the HOA didn't actually own the lake. They just had the right to mow the grass and stock fish. Ownership stayed with the original developer, who, get this, hadn't paid property taxes in years. The real bombshell? There were $47,000 in unpaid taxes on the lake. Enough for the county to seize it and put it up for tax sale. Minimum bid, $47,000. I called Marcus at 6 a.m. and didn't even apologize for waking him. Ever hear of a tax lien auction? I asked. He grunted. Yeah, the county sells properties to recoup back taxes. Why? I laid it out. Lake goes up for auction in 6 weeks. I want to know what happens if I buy it. Silence. Then Marcus, who's usually the calmest guy in the room, starts cackling. Dalton, you buy that lake. You own every inch of dirt under Bethany's empire. You could ban her from her own backyard. I'd never heard him sound so giddy. But my pulse hammered as the plan took shape. Of course, nothing is ever that easy. Bethany wasn't dumb. She'd sniffed out the auction too. The county's registered bidders list had Willowbrook Property Management LLC signed up. Bethany's name in black and white. That's what those frantic post-meeting phone calls were about. She was scrambling to lock down financing to buy the lake herself, then turn around and charge everyone premium fees for her private lake. I could practically see it now. Eliminate the problem residents, scoop up the lake for pennies, then hold the whole neighborhood hostage. I'll give her credit. She was running a long con. But the thing about cons is you always overlook one quiet detail. In this case, me. Marcus, I need a loan pre-approval, I told him. How much, he asked. Whatever it takes to outbid her. That afternoon, I sat at my usual fishing spot, brain in overdrive. I started running the numbers. My Navy pension plus what I made as a contractor. Decent collateral for a property loan. I had $52,000 in savings, and Marcus lined up an $80,000 loan, just in case. But what really mattered was the community. Bethany's campaign was about profit. Mine? It was about defending where people actually lived. And word was getting out. Mrs. Kowalski turned into my unofficial campaign manager, organizing what she called coffee gatherings of quiet revolution. People shared stories. Patel's banned from swimming. Henderson's fined for 2 American flags. Elderly folks too scared to check their mail without violating something. Marcus had the property surveyed. Turns out Bethany's own backyard landscaping encroached on the lake parcel by 15 feet. If she bought the lake, she could force half the street to tear out decks, gardens, even old trees. Meanwhile, my time as a Navy logistics guy paid off. I started calculating the real cost of lake maintenance, not just the upfront price tag. It was a lot. But the key was you had to actually care about the place to make it work. As the auction approached, my garage turned into mission control. Property maps and loan docs everywhere. Calendar counting down days like a deployment. But I wasn't alone anymore. Jimmy, my reluctant security guard, was now feeding me daily updates. She's been talking to contractors about building a pay booth at the entrance, getting quotes on liability insurance for paddle boats and swimming. The closer we got, the more Bethany ramped up the crazy. Neighborhood rules changed by the week. Signs sprouted up, new fees, new violations, new threats. She started planning to turn the lake into a business. Me? I started bringing extra coffee, more chairs, inviting neighbors to fish, making a point every single morning that the lake belonged to us. The night before the auction, I could barely breathe. The entire neighborhood was counting on me. Even Mr. Patel, the guy who never talked, pulled me aside. She made enemies of all of us. This isn't just your fight anymore, Dalton. The garage was filled with maps, paperwork, and old fishing photos of Miranda. It felt like the night before a big up-heavy, but somehow right. Auction day came. Blue sky, morning mist, could have been any other Saturday. Except half the neighborhood was at the courthouse steps. Mrs. Kowalski with her thermos, the Henderson kids holding handmade Save Our Lake signs, even Mr. Rodriguez from the corner house, usually invisible, showed up. Then the news crews arrived. Channel 7, local Herald. Word had gotten out about Bethany's little power play. Bethany rolled up 10 minutes before the auction. She was pale, hands shaking, flanked by a man in a $1,000 suit. You didn't mention community involvement, I heard him mutter. She hissed, it's handled. But her eyes flicked from the crowd to the cameras. She wasn't so sure anymore. County clerk calls the auction to order. Minimum bid, $47,247.83. Bethany's hand shoots up. I wait, let the tension stretch, then go to 50. She jumps to 60. 70. I answer back with 80, heart pounding. The news cameras start to close in. At 90, Bethany's corporate suit steps back, shaking his head. I'm 100, she yells, voice cracking. I stood up, made sure every camera caught it, and called out 150. Silence hit like a slap. You could see Bethany's soul leave her body. She looked around, corporate guy, crowd, neighborhood. No one left to save her. Going once, going twice, the gavel dropped. Sold. Dalton Reeves, $150,000. And just like that, I owned every inch of the lake she tried to control. The courthouse steps exploded. Mrs. Kowalski cried. Hendersons hugged their kids. Even Rodriguez grinned. The news crew pushed forward. Mr. Reeves, what are your plans for the lake? I took a breath, tried to make it count. I'm transferring ownership to the Willowbrook Estates community, with permanent legal restrictions. No fees, no limitations, no board power to restrict access. This lake belongs to the families who call this place home, not predators looking for profit. I turned to Bethany. Next time you try to steal from a neighborhood, pick one that doesn't have a Navy logistics officer who knows how to fight back. Mic drop. Even the Channel 7 guy looked impressed. But victory wasn't clean. 6 months later, Bethany was facing criminal charges, bribery, false police reports, lost her real estate license. Her brother-in-law lost all his contracts. She moved out, replaced by a young military family who fit right in. But honestly, the best part wasn't the legal win. It was seeing the culture change. Thursday morning coffee in Mrs. Kowalski's kitchen. Neighbors actually planning real improvements. Kids swimming again. People walking the lake without looking over their shoulder. Even Jimmy, who got fired from his fake security job, was back, helping with lake maintenance and studying criminal justice. The Freedom to Fish Festival drew 300 people. Local businesses donating prizes. Fire department teaching water safety. The morning after the festival, I sat on my dock, tackle box at my side, Miranda's thermos in my hand. The lake was quiet. Mrs. Kowalski waved from her window. Not hiding anymore, just living. Little Sarah Henderson asked if she could fish with me. I said, count on it. And as the sun set, painting everything gold, I thought, this is what it was all for. 6 months after that courthouse showdown, you'd never know this neighborhood had been under siege. Most mornings now, I wake up before sunrise, make my coffee, grab Miranda's old tackle box, and head to the dock. That's still my spot. It's quiet, but never lonely anymore. Sometimes Mrs. Kowalski waves from her kitchen window, apron dusted with flour, or Sarah Henderson races down to fish before school. The place feels like it finally breathed out after holding its breath too long. The legal transfer went quick after the auction. Marcus drew up community deed restrictions that locked the lake down. No fees, no usage limits, no board authority ever again. That's permanent now. What should have been true from day one is actually the law. If you'd asked me a year ago if I'd ever use my Navy experience to outmaneuver a suburban HOA president, I would have laughed. Life's got a sense of humor. Bethany's fall was fast and ugly. The perjury charges stuck. Bribery too. She got 6 months probation, community service, and lost her real estate license for good. Her brother-in-law's security company lost every contract it had. She sold her house to a young military couple with toddler twins who love feeding the ducks. They fit here. The new neighbors don't measure grass or call code enforcement because your mailbox flag is crooked. But the best thing? The whole neighborhood changed. That fear she built, people worried to check mail, kids banned from swimming, elderly folks terrorized by tape measures. It vanished almost overnight. Mrs. Kowalski started Thursday morning coffee for anyone who wanted to talk about real improvements. Her kitchen smells like cinnamon rolls and hope. Now folks talk about fixing sidewalks and planting flowers, not which neighbor got a violation this week. We held the first annual Freedom to Fish Festival. 300 people turned up, some from neighboring towns who heard about us on the news. Local businesses gave away rods, the fire department did water safety demos, and Jimmy, now a volunteer lake manager, taught kids to cast. He's studying criminal justice at the community college. Says writing those menacing fishing reports for Bethany was the worst job he ever had. Mr. Patel finished his audit of the HOA books. Turns out there was $23,000 of misappropriated money. We used it to fix playgrounds, add a memorial garden, and, my favorite, a lakeside bench with Miranda's name on it. The plaque reads, "In honor of those who served and found peace in quiet waters." She'd have liked that. And that's the real reward, if I'm being honest. It's not about beating Bethany or banning an HOA from a lake. It's mornings like this one. Coffee steam curling in the air, the lake smooth as glass, a little girl sitting beside me asking, "Mr. Dalton, why did that lady want to take our lake?" I tell her the truth. Some people think being powerful means making other folks feel small. But real strength is sharing what you love. She nodded. Then, dead serious, "Can you teach me to cast like you taught my brother?" "Count on it," I said. Most days now, there's laughter on the dock, not arguments. Sometimes I just close my eyes and listen to the kids, the ducks, the sound of someone's dog chasing a tennis ball, all of it echoing across the water. There's a kind of peace you earn by standing your ground, by refusing to let someone else decide what home means. You ever have a moment where you realize you didn't just survive something, you actually built something better out of the wreckage? That's this place now. The Freedom to Fish Scholarship, yeah, that's a real thing, has paid for 37 kids to get their first tackle boxes, and every time I see a new face on the water, I remember why we fought. Property values jumped 15% after Bethany left. Turns out, people like neighborhoods where the main activity isn't measuring each other's grass with rulers. The story went viral. My email still gets messages from folks all over, asking how to fight their own little dictators. I tell them all the same 3 things. Know your rights, document everything, and never let anyone tell you their authority is more real than your community. The biggest change, though, is just personal. My mornings on the lake feel like therapy again. Miranda's gear, the old thermos, the slow rhythm of casting lines. Those things belong to me again, not to some war. Sometimes Sarah sits beside me, or Mrs. Kowalski brings coffee, or Patel asks about the next festival. But mostly, it's quiet, the kind that fills you up. Not every fight ends with a parade. There's still loss. I still miss Miranda, and I'm tired in ways that don't go away. But I've got peace, and I know I didn't back down, not for me, and not for anybody else in Willowbrook. You know, there's always going to be folks who think power is about taking things from others. But the world's full of people ready to stand up, quietly, stubbornly, together. And when enough of us say no more, even the loudest bully can't hold a neighborhood hostage. That's my story. If you've got your own HOA horror show, or you're facing down some local tyrant, remember, document everything, find your allies, And don't let them convince you you're alone. You're not. So what would you do if your HOA tried to fine you for using what's supposed to be yours? Drop a comment. Share your story. Who knows? Maybe the next neighborhood miracle starts with you.